You won't believe how cruel an empath can be when he's angry with a narcissist. We often think of empaths as the gentle souls of this world, the ones who feel deeply, love fiercely, and give endlessly. They are the healers, the listeners, the ones who seem to carry the weight of other people's pain like it's their own. And when we imagine an empath going up against a narcissist, we expect them to respond with compassion, patience, and understanding. But what happens when that same empath becomes truly angry? What happens when the person who always gives second chances finally runs out of forgiveness? What happens when the one who never lashes out decides enough is enough? What happens when the softest heart hardens and the kindest soul turns cold? Because here's something most people don't talk about. An empath, when pushed too far, can be just as ruthless as the narcissist they once tried to understand. Not because they've become cruel, but because they've finally seen through the mask. In this video, we'll explore the shocking truth about how an empath behaves when he or she becomes truly angry with a narcissist. We'll reveal why they stop giving chances, why they start exposing secrets, and why they suddenly speak with a clarity and strength that surprises everyone, including themselves. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about becoming toxic. This is about awakening, about reclaiming power, about refusing to be manipulated any longer. If you've ever wondered what happens when an empath walks away from a narcissist, or if you've been on the receiving end of one, you're about to see a side of empaths you may have never imagined existed. So if you're ready to understand the transformation that takes place when an empath gets angry at a narcissist, keep watching, because knowledge is power. And once you understand how empaths fight back not with cruelty, but with unshakable clarity, you'll never underestimate them again. Let's begin. When someone talks about empaths, the image that comes to mind is usually one of peace, calm, and boundless compassion. Empaths are believed to be highly sensitive individuals, people who absorb emotions like sponges, who feel others' pain as if it were their own, and who often put others before themselves. Psychologists describe empaths as those with high emotional intelligence, deep empathy, and an almost intuitive ability to sense the feelings of those around them. These individuals are not just kind, they are wired to connect emotionally in ways that most people aren't. That's what makes them so attractive to narcissists in the first place. Narcissists are drawn to empaths like moths to a flame. They recognize the depth of feeling, the need to help, and the willingness to forgive, and they exploit it relentlessly. They gaslight them. They guilt-trip them. They manipulate their kindness into weakness. They twist their love into control. And for a long time, the empath stays. Why? Because they believe in healing. They believe in redemption. They believe that if they love deeply enough, if they listen long enough, if they try hard enough, they can change the narcissist. But what most people don't realize is that this belief doesn't last forever. Eventually, the empath sees the truth. The lies no longer fool them. The manipulation no longer works. The guilt trips fall flat. The charm no longer blinds them. And when that moment comes, when the veil lifts and the empath realizes he has been living inside a carefully constructed illusion, he changes. He doesn't lash out immediately. He doesn't scream or cry. He doesn't retaliate in obvious ways. Instead, he does something far more powerful. He stops reacting. He stops explaining. He stops begging for understanding. And that silence, that absence of emotion, that refusal to engage, that's where the real damage begins for the narcissist. Because narcissists thrive on attention. Even negative attention fuels them. But indifference, emotional detachment, that's like cutting off their oxygen. And when the empath chooses that path, not out of hatred, but out of self-preservation, that's when the narcissist begins to panic. But let's go deeper. Let's walk through exactly what happens when an empath becomes truly angry with a narcissist, because it's not what most people expect. First, the empath stops seeing the narcissist as a victim and starts seeing him as a predator. Empaths often enter relationships with narcissists believing they are helping someone broken. They see the narcissist's wounds, their childhood trauma, their deep-seated insecurities, and they want to heal them. Psychologists refer to this as the rescuer complex. It's common among empaths, especially those who grew up in dysfunctional environments where caretaking was part of survival. They believe that if they can show enough love, provide enough support, and offer enough understanding, they can save the person they care about. But there comes a breaking point, a moment when the empath realizes that the narcissist is not a wounded child needing guidance. He is a manipulator who sees empathy as a weapon to be used, not a gift to be cherished. And when that realization hits, the empath shifts. He no longer sees the narcissist as someone to be fixed. He sees him clearly as someone who chose to hurt rather than heal. Second, the empath stops feeding the narcissist's ego, and that terrifies them. One of the key tools in a narcissist's arsenal is the ability to extract admiration, whether it's praise, validation, or even resistance. Narcissists feed off emotional reactions. They need to know that they still matter to the empath. But when the empath becomes truly angry, when he no longer feels the need to explain himself, defend his choices, or justify his emotions, he simply withdraws. He removes himself from the game entirely. This isn't about being cold. It's about setting boundaries so strong that they become impenetrable. No more conversations, no more apologies, no more trying to make things better. And for the narcissist, that silence is unbearable, because narcissists fear nothing more than being ignored. To them, being forgotten is worse than being hated. Being irrelevant is worse than being exposed. And now, the empath has done the one thing the narcissist couldn't prepare for. He stopped giving them anything to feed on. Third, the empath begins to expose the truth, and does so with quiet precision. Once the empath awakens to the reality of the narcissist's behavior, he no longer feels the need to protect the narcissist's image. He understands that by staying silent, by shielding the narcissist from consequences, he was allowing the cycle to continue. So he speaks, not with rage, not with vengeance, but with clarity. He tells the truth, not to destroy, but to protect. He warns others. He shares his story. He explains the red flags, the patterns, the manipulation tactics that kept him trapped for so long. And this is where the empath's cruelty, though not malicious, is most visible. Because, unlike the narcissist, the empath knows exactly how the narcissist operates. He saw it up close. He lived it. He felt it in every fiber of his being. And now, he uses that knowledge to dismantle the narcissist's carefully built facade, one truth at a time. Fourth, the empath refuses to play the narcissist's games, even when provoked. Narcissists hate losing control. So when the empath walks away, they often return with hoovering techniques, false apologies, grand gestures, sudden declarations of change. But the awakened empath doesn't fall for it. He recognizes the pattern. He sees the manipulation. He knows the apology isn't sincere. And instead of falling back into the trap, he walks away again, this time without looking back. Psychologists note that this stage is crucial in the empath's journey. It marks the point where the empath moves from victim to survivor, from confusion to clarity, from emotional entanglement to complete detachment. And that shift is not only painful for the narcissist, it's devastating. Fifth, the empath reveals the narcissist's secrets, not out of spite, but out of necessity. One of the most misunderstood aspects of the empath-narcissist dynamic is the role of secrecy. Narcissists thrive in shadows. They rely on keeping their true nature hidden behind layers of charm, deception, and false narratives. But when the empath awakens, he no longer plays along. He starts telling the truth, not to ruin lives, but to prevent future victims. He exposes the lies, the double standards, the hypocrisy. He shows others what the narcissist tries so desperately to hide. And while outsiders may mistake this as cruelty, therapists describe it as protection. The empath is not seeking revenge. He's protecting others from enduring what he did. Sixth, the empath sets boundaries so firm, the narcissist has no way back in. Boundaries are the ultimate threat to a narcissist. And when the empath finally learns how to set them and enforce them without exception, it completely disrupts the narcissist's world. The empath no longer answers calls, no longer responds to texts, no longer defends himself, no longer allows the narcissist to rewrite history or distort reality. From the outside, this might look harsh, cold, even cruel, but in reality, it's the healthiest form of self-protection. It's the empath choosing peace over chaos, truth over illusion, and freedom over control. Seventh, the empath stops carrying the narcissist's emotional burden, and that leaves the narcissist exposed. Empaths often take on the emotional weight of others. They absorb stress, worry, and pain, sometimes without even realizing it. And for years the empath may unknowingly carry the narcissist's emotional instability, hoping that love will bring balance. But when the empath awakens, he drops that weight like a stone. He stops absorbing the narcissist's drama. He stops soothing their fragile ego. He stops making excuses for their behavior. And most importantly, he stops taking responsibility for things that were never his fault. This act alone destabilizes the narcissist. Without someone to carry their emotional load, the narcissist is forced to face his own inner turmoil. And for someone who avoids self-reflection at all costs, that can feel like drowning. Eighth, the empath no longer validates the narcissist's reality, and that breaks the illusion. Narcissists rely on others to reinforce their distorted worldview. They need someone to agree with them, support them, and reflect back the image they want to believe in. And for a long time, the empath played that role. He validated the narcissist version of events, agreed with their interpretations, and allowed himself to be rewritten as the villain. But when the empath wakes up, he stops participating in that narrative. He no longer nods in agreement. He no longer lets himself be blamed. He no longer accepts twisted versions of the truth. And without that reflection, the narcissist's carefully crafted illusion begins to crack. Ninth, the empath becomes emotionally unavailable, and that drives the narcissist to desperation. Narcissists need constant emotional fuel. They crave attention, validation, and emotional responses. And for years, the empath provided that through concern, sadness, anger, or even attempts to fix things. But once the empath cuts off all emotional access, the narcissist is left staring into an abyss. There's no reaction, no guilt, no hope of reconciliation, no opportunity for manipulation. And that's when the narcissist panics, because the empath was the one person who could still trigger a response, the one person who had the power to restore the narcissist's sense of control. Now that power is gone. 10th, the empath finds peace, and that becomes the final blow to the narcissist's ego. Perhaps the cruelest blow of all is when the empath begins to heal, when he rebuilds his life, when he finds happiness without the narcissist, when he grows stronger, healthier, and more grounded than ever before. To the empath, this is liberation. To the narcissist, it's humiliation. Because the narcissist spent years convincing the empath that he needed them, that he couldn't survive without their presence, that he was flawed, unstable, or broken. And now, the empath proves the opposite. He thrives. He smiles. He builds a life free of manipulation. And he does it without bitterness, without retaliation, and without the narcissist in his life at all. From a psychological standpoint, this is the final stage of the empath's healing process. It's not about proving a point. It's about reclaiming autonomy, rebuilding self-worth, and choosing peace over pain. And for the narcissist, watching this unfold is like witnessing their worst nightmare, because it confirms what they feared all along, that they were never the center of the empath's world, that they were never truly loved for who they were, and that their influence was never as powerful as they believed. And now, the empath is gone, not in body but in spirit, in energy, in emotional connection. He no longer carries their words. He no longer reacts to their games. He no longer lets them live rent-free in his mind. And that is the ultimate form of release. So if you've ever wondered how an empath fights back, know this: not with rage, not with cruelty, but with clarity, strength, and unwavering detachment. Empaths don't turn cruel out of malice. They become unyielding out of necessity. They stop giving energy to those who abuse it. They stop forgiving those who never truly apologize. And they stop loving those who only know how to destroy. And in doing so, they break the cycle. Because the empath who once gave everything to the narcissist now gives nothing. And that is the cruelest fate a narcissist can endure. Thank you for watching this video. If you found this message meaningful or helpful, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing it with others who may benefit from hearing it. Awareness is the first step toward healing. Understanding the dynamics between empaths and narcissists helps us see the full picture, not just the pain, but the transformation that follows. Remember, you are not alone. You are not weak. You are not broken. You are simply human, recovering from something far more complex than most people understand. Keep moving forward, trust your instincts, and never forget, your strength is real and it belongs to you now, fully and completely.